Alright guys, I want to make a video actually on something that has been kind of bothering me. We've had recently the Microsoft conference, E3 2018 conference, and one of the more interesting things that happened was Phil Spencer took it upon himself to let us know that his crack commando team of engineers is hard at work at the next version of Xbox hardware. Now, this had me a little concerned at first because I'm like, why is he talking about it now? But when you think about it, all signs point out that it's going to be at least 2020 when this thing comes out. Hopefully a little later. Hopefully the PlayStation will come out in 2020 and the Xbox One X, or the Xbox, whatever it's going to be called, comes out in 2021. And I've already made a video, and I might go over some of the points either way. But I've already made the video as to why it should come out in 2021. But what I really wanted to talk about is the problem that most of us are facing when discussing the next Xbox. And that is the lack of a name. We don't know what this darn thing is going to be called. Xbox's or Microsoft's naming conventions for the Xbox have been all over the place. And they start really with the Xbox 360. So, I actually want to serendipitously echo those sentiments and actually channel that energy of parity, because that's the reason why the Xbox 360 was named, to give it parity between the PlayStation 3 and the Xbox 360, so that people wouldn't think, oh, the PlayStation 3 is bigger than or it's more, the number's higher than the Xbox 2. Hence, the PlayStation 3 must be more advanced, must be better somehow. So they didn't want to come off as inferior in the through their branding or naming convention for the Xbox 360. They didn't want to come off as inferior to the PlayStation 3. So it was within that kind of a framework that they came up with the name and the marketing scheme for the Xbox 360. So it's in that spirit that I want to submit this next name for the next Xbox. So without further ado, I want to, maybe get a little bit of a drum roll here and give you guys the name, which is Xbox X-5. What do you guys think of that, huh? Xbox X-5. And I'm going to tell you why that kind of makes sense to me. First of all, and most obviously, if we're approaching this and continuing in the spirit of the whole parity scheme, it works out perfectly. First of all, it's a name. Not only is it a name that's easy to remember and actually makes sense, it conveys that parity because you have PlayStation 5 or PS5, and now you're going to have either Xbox X5 or simply X5. Hey, what game are you, or what platform are you getting, or what are you playing on, buddy? Oh, I'm playing on the X5, man. Yeah, me too. Yeah, it sounds great. Okay, but not only does it sound great, unlike Xbox One or Xbox 360, this makes a whole lot more sense, and it's a twofold legitimacy. First of all, we could look at the specs. Now, a lot of this naming, the legitimacy of the specs for the naming, have to do with whether or not it's going to come out with a 7 nanometer plus technology. In other words, is it going to be manufactured on 7 nanometers plus? Now, I do want to basically state that whenever I made my initial predictions, that was based on a strict mathematical translation of how much more space you would have on 7 nanometers than you would on a 16 nanometer SoC. And the math I came up with was about 5.2 times, or 520% more density on an SoC the same size, which is perfectly mathematically sound. But like a lot of the more educated and astute viewers I've got pointed out, it's not necessarily the case, because 7 nanometer is more of a marketing term now than an actual measurement. So it comes to find out that that actual measurement, while it's not directly stated in TSMC's website, if you string together two articles, one about the benefits of 16 or 10 nanometers over 16, and then 7 nanometers over 10 nanometers, if you create an aggregate of those two, you come up with a figure of 3.2. Now, having said that, clearly it's not in the same ballpark as the 510% or 20% increase. But one of the mitigating factors is the increase in the frequency. You're looking at an increase of 35% instead of the 15% that I allowed for. Having said that, I allowed for a 15% increase in clock speed because I'm not an electrical engineer. I don't know anything about the chip manufacturing process. I basically get my information like everybody else through websites. So a 32 teraflop chip for the Xbox One X on a regular 7 nanometer would be all but impossibility. So it would be all but impossible for Microsoft to come out with a 32 teraflop console in 2020. Now, if they came out with a 7 nanometer plus, we're still in that ballpark. I think we get almost 32 teraflops when we do the conversion, because now we're looking at 35 or 38 increase in clock frequency over 16 nanometers, which is what the Xbox One X uses, and coupled with a 4.8 increase, either 4.2 or 4.8 increase in density. I'm not entirely sure what that does. So that gets us about 32 teraflops, but if you want to adjust for yields on an SoC, then you could easily come up with a number like 30. Now, the number 30 is important because if we come out in 2021 with a 7 nanometer plus technology node and come out with a 30 teraflop machine, that is coincidentally 5 times as powerful as the Xbox One X. Also, the CPU could easily be 5 times as powerful as a CPU in the standard Xbox One. Okay, so now you have 5 times the CPU and 5 times the GPU, which are huge numbers, by the way. This is very significant. On top of that, if you go, especially in 2021 again, if you go with 64 gigabytes of RAM, that is a little over 5 times the 12 gigabytes found in the Xbox One X. And then another thing you're looking at is that you have the potential for sticking a 5 teraflop hard drive, which I think the Sony PlayStation 5 is probably going to be coming out with a 4 terabyte hard drive. Given how hard drives keep shrinking, I think by the year 2020 you'll be able to pick up one on the street, a 4 terabyte hard drive for about $50, somewhere in that neighborhood. So it's very plausible that Sony, not just buying them wholesale, but in mass, would probably get them for a whole lot cheaper than that. So from a spec standpoint, you're looking at a lot of 5 times or 5x, pardon the pun, I guess it'd be an X5, the X5. So you're looking at a lot of specs that are 5 times, a lot of core fundamental specs that are 5 times that of either the Xbox One X or the Xbox One. So that in and of itself would make a whole lot of sense. The next thing that makes sense, especially when you're considering parity or giving any legitimacy or sensicality to the naming scheme, would be that this, if you take into account that a lot of people consider the Xbox One X almost a generational leap over the original Xbox, which From a GPU standpoint, that could definitely be argued. You also have much better RAM than the original Xboxes. The RAM chips are actually different. It's a different amount with a much higher bandwidth than the original Xbox. So from a memory and GPU standpoint, it is fundamentally a different architecture. And then, of course, you have the same CPU, but you have it increased in clock. I think it's like 30% more speed. And there is that whole issue that the draw calls can be handled now by the GPU, which frees up the CPU for other duties that make it even more powerful from a certain perspective. So from that aspect, you have the Xbox, the original Xbox. 4 years later, you had the Xbox 360, again, parity with the naming convention. 8 years later, you have the Xbox One, but then 4 years later, you have the Xbox One X. 4 years after that, you have the X-5. So, for me, it's a name that makes a whole lot of sense. It's a name that potentially celebrates and markets the huge increase in power potentially if they invest. Even the price at $500, X5, 5 times 100. I don't know, guys. For me, this works out tremendous. So you guys tell me, what do you guys think of X5? Does that make any sense at all to you guys? I'm going to apologize ahead of time because I'm going to probably use a clickbaity type of title because, something like this you need to get people's attention in order for them to be able to appreciate it. But I'll be sure to write in the description that this is just my take. But I think I'll title it something like Scarlett equals Xbox Scarlett equals Xbox X5, something like that. Anyways, guys, you tell me what you guys think, what you guys would call the new Xbox, if Xbox 5 makes any sense. I thought of X squared, but you almost have to say it. Typing it is a little difficult, and X squared really doesn't, because it almost sounds like Xbox 2 or whatnot. I think X5 makes a whole lot more sense. Anyways, you guys, please rate, comment, and subscribe, and stay tuned because I've got more videos coming in the next few days. All right? You guys take care. Bye-bye.